My relationship with the Devil May Cry series is honestly pretty weird because I've only played 2 games in the series, but I really liked both of those games. The first game I played was of course Devil May Cry 1. I played it originally when it released on the PS2, I picked up the Nintendo Switch version when it came out last year, and I really enjoyed the game. The other game in the series that I played is Devil May Cry 5, which of course came out on the PS4 and the Xbox One, played it on the Xbox One, and I really enjoyed the game. But a lot of people have been telling me that Devil May Cry 3 was the best Devil May Cry game, so when it was announced for the Nintendo Switch, I was definitely very interested in it. After playing the game, I can say with full confidence that Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition on the Nintendo Switch is an absolute must-buy game for the system. What's up guys, I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about why Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition for the Nintendo Switch is an absolute must-own for the platform. So the story of Devil May Cry 3 actually takes place before Devil May Cry 1, and help fills in some of the backstory from the original game. Dante is hanging out in his shop, it does not have a name yet, and a mysterious man named Arkham comes in, saying that he has an invitation from Dante's brother, Virgil. After some demons attack Dante, Dante learns that Arkham is actually working for Virgil, and the plan is to take the amulet that Dante wears in order to connect the human world and the demon world together. I always wonder why evil characters in games want to do things like this, as it never really seems like a good idea. Do you really want demons taking over the world? I sure as hell don't. Dante then sets out to take down Arkham and Virgil, and along the way meets a mysterious girl named Mary, who plays an integral part in the story as well. Now I don't want to spoil things for you guys, but the story actually isn't too bad. There's an interesting cast of characters that you meet along the way, and some moments with Dante that actually made me chuckle out loud, due to his laid-back demeanor throughout the game. The story scenes in the game play out in 2 different ways, with CGI cutscenes and in-game texture ones. The CGI cutscenes honestly look very dated, as they are probably straight from the original version of the game, which of course released on the PS2, and have a lot of grain and fuzz to them. The in-game cutscenes fare much better though, due to texture resolution increases done with this version of the game. Thankfully, the CGI stuff is few and far between compared to the in-game cutscenes. Of course, the main appeal of the Devil May Cry series is the gameplay, and many consider Devil May Cry 3 to be one of the best, if not the best, games in the series. As I mentioned before, I'm only familiar with Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 5, and a lot of time has passed in between those 2 games, but I could definitely see a lot of influences from both of them. While Devil May Cry 1 was essentially a ninja-based Resident Evil experience, Devil May Cry 5 was a much more traditional action-adventure game that reminded me a lot of games like Bayonetta and Metal Gear Revengeance, and Devil May Cry 3 falls pretty much in between those 2 games for me. The camera system is still similar to old-school Resident Evil and Devil May Cry 1 in that it has a prefixed camera system with different camera angles, but there's a little more movement allowed with the second analog stick to get a better look at things. The camera does get in the way from time to time, unfortunately, but it was mostly a minor issue that definitely wasn't as prevalent as it was in Devil May Cry 1. The way the game plays, however, is definitely a lot more like a modern action-adventure game with hack-and-slash elements. Dante now has a ton of combos at his disposal, and the combat between the swordplay and the gunplay is seamless to transition to between the 2 in the heat of battle. Dante acquires various guns and swords along his journey, all of which can be upgraded. What's great about the Nintendo Switch version of the game is that you can switch your weapons on the fly, and that's good because some of the enemies are more prone to certain weapons than other types of enemies. You can max out the power of your guns, or add additional moves to each melee weapon you acquire for bigger combos. The way to unlock more moves is by using the in-game currency known as red orbs. You get red orbs by doing different things like defeating enemies, finding hidden caches of red orbs, or by completing missions in the fastest time possible without item use. Red orbs are also used to buy items in the game, such as additional health items to replenish when you're getting your ass kicked. Now, one of the biggest additions to Devil May Cry 3 over its predecessors was the ability to use 4 different fighting styles that all have unique abilities. There's the Trickster style, which allows for faster dodging and more agility, the Gunslinger, which allows for more gun attacks, Swordmaster, which allows for larger melee attacks, and Royal Guard, which allows for parrying of attacks. Later on in the game, you get 2 additional styles as well. You can upgrade all of these styles that will allow you to get more moves for them as well. Each style feels a lot different compared to the other styles due to the different moves, but I honestly spent most of my time in the game with the Swordmaster, as I like the bigger melee attacks, and the Royal Guard, which helps a lot on some of the tougher boss battles with the parrying system. One of the standout features that is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version of the game is the availability to change styles on the fly, which is the first time it's been in Devil May Cry 3. In all of the other editions of the game, you basically can only switch styles when you come across a checkpoint of the game, whereas on the Nintendo Switch, all of the styles are mapped to the D-pad, allowing you to have a hell of a lot more control over the game. After playing the game on the Switch, I honestly couldn't imagine playing the other versions of this game that don't allow for weapon and style changes on the fly, as it makes the game feel very modern even though essentially it's a PS2 game at its core. Dante also has access to the Devil Trigger, which is a time mode in which he essentially becomes Super Dante and moves faster and dishes out more damage in attacks and combos. You can unlock more orbs for your Devil Trigger meter as well, and the longer your Devil Trigger meter lasts, the more health you will regenerate during that time. It's fun to figure out when the best time to use your Devil Trigger is, as it definitely can help you get out of some sticky situations. The presentation in Devil May Cry 3 for the Nintendo Switch is very reminiscent of the port of Devil May Cry 1 that we got on the system last year. As mentioned before, the CGI cutscenes have aged pretty poorly, but the in-game ones look nice. All the textures in the game are from the HD collection of Devil May Cry 3, and honestly, the game looks very good considering how old it is. Textures are nice and clean, enemies are interesting, environments can look very nice, and the game suffers from absolutely no slowdown or hiccups when the action is at its craziest. The audio in the game is pretty well done as well, with solid voice acting across the board, rocking music that gets louder as your combo meter gets higher, and some well done sound effects sprinkled in. The main game of Devil May Cry 3 will take you around 10 to 15 hours on your first playthrough, but there are a ton of reasons to go back and replay through the game. After the initial completion of the game, you unlock Virgil, who you can then play through the game with, which is a really cool feature because he's a very different character than Dante. There's also hidden missions scattered throughout all of the levels as well that have you doing additional things such as defeating a set number of enemies in an amount of time. You can replay through missions after defeating them with your new power-ups that you've acquired in the game in order to get a better ranking as well. Aside from all of that, there's also a game mode called Bloody Palace. Bloody Palace is basically a mode where you fight through waves of enemies and features 9,999 different levels. It's a great way to get more red orbs, and the game tracks how far you've gotten throughout the levels as well. After beating one level, you can then choose to go up 1 level, 10 levels, or 100 levels. Now, exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version of the game is the ability to play Bloody Palace in local co-op mode as well, which is yet another really dope feature. You also get additional difficulties unlocked to play through the game with after you beat the game as well. I honestly don't have too many complaints about Devil May Cry 3 besides the ones that I've already mentioned. Yeah, the CGI cutscenes kinda suck, and the camera does get in your way once in a while, and I guess the other thing would be that the game can be pretty challenging. On your first playthrough, you could choose between easy or normal difficulty, and I went with normal. I got my ass kicked a lot on certain bosses, but once I figured out their patterns and what weapons to use, it honestly got a lot easier, and it gave me a great level of satisfaction. Now, I think it would have been nice if you could switch the difficulty of the level, but you can't, as the game will lock you into the difficulty setting you started out with. So if you're stuck on level 9 on normal mode, you can't switch it to easy mode, because easy mode will only have the first level available to you unless you've beaten the other levels in easy mode first. Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition on the Nintendo Switch is honestly a port done right, and I have to applaud Capcom for this. Devil May Cry 3 is $20 on the Nintendo Switch, and yes, you can get the Devil May Cry HD collection featuring Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3 on other platforms like the PS4 and the Xbox One, but the additional features of this game really make it stand out as the definitive edition of Devil May Cry 3. Capcom's pricing on things like Resident Evil on the Switch does suck, and I often say wait for a sale on the Resident Evil games, but I could say with full confidence that Capcom did a fantastic job with Devil May Cry 3 on the Nintendo Switch, and honestly, it's worth rewarding Capcom's positive decision and great results with this version of the game by picking it up. It's an absolute must-own. I could definitely see why a lot of people consider this to be one of the greatest games of all time and one of the greatest Devil May Cry games in the series, and the Nintendo Switch features added into it just make it all that much better. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition for the Nintendo Switch. Like I said, man, it is a fantastic game. I was really impressed with just how much fun I had with this game, and I think the added stuff in the Nintendo Switch version of this game really makes it the definitive version. I couldn't imagine playing this game without being able to change my weapons on the fly and my styles on the fly. It definitely feels like a very modern game, and I know Capcom has done some pretty questionable things on the Switch, but Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition is definitely not one of them. So if you like games like this, definitely go ahead and pick it up. Well, those are my thoughts on Devil May Cry 3 for the Nintendo Switch. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out other videos on the channel as well, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.